Herzlich willkommen zurück hier auf der Bühne 7 der Media Convention 2019. Wenn es um Digitalisierung geht und unsere digitale Welt, dann geht es ja oft um Regulierung, um Regeln und irgendwie auch immer um Problematiken. Deswegen wollen wir uns in unserem nächsten Panel mal trauen, ein bisschen zu träumen und über den Tellerrand der Medienlandschaft zu gucken und eventuell die ein oder andere Utopie in unseren Köpfen zu zeichnen. Deswegen sage ich Bühne frei für unser nächstes Panel, Doing Utopia, Setting a Stage for a Diverse and Innovative Future. Denn jeder weiß, manchmal muss man träumen, um auch irgendwie was zu bewegen und dann auch etwas umsetzen zu können. Und ich will auf der Bühne begrüßen Daniel Budiman, der steht normalerweise rechts oder links neben mir. Er ist eigentlich mein Host-Co-Moderator und der hat mich heute jetzt allein hier auf die Bühne geschickt, damit ich ihn auch ordentlich vorstelle und das mache ich jetzt. Daniel Budiman ist ein Fernsehmoderator und so ein bisschen der Ninja der Fernsehbranche. Er wurde 2017 mit dem Fernsehpreis für den besten Fernsehmoderator ausgezeichnet und ja, niemand hat so richtig geklatscht, weil ihn niemand so richtig kannte und er hatte zu dem Zeitpunkt auch gar keine Fernsehshow. Also Ninja der Fernsehbranche, komm rein Daniel, du bist auch Mitbegründer und...
Ich mag das, Ninja der Fernsehbranche,
ja, oder?
I take it. Ja.
Ich lasse dir jetzt die Bühne. Ich komme ja später nochmal wieder. Viel Spaß, Daniel.
Dankeschön,
und viel Spaß den Gästen und euch allen auch.
Okay, so maybe then, thank you, Rebecca. Now it's time to switch to the English language because the next panel will be held in English. So if you need translation, take a headset from that box and then you will understand what we are talking here right now. So the topic about this thing is called Doing Utopia, setting the stage for an innovative media future. And we have really interesting persons here on stage 7. And I'd love to get them on stage, but I do have a tiny thing in my life, and that's called video gaming. I love to get to understand rules for playing stuff, right? So, and everyone said it's okay to have this tiny game before we start the panel. So 5 persons on stage, and we begin with Rebecca Ahlen. She has 138 tweets, and that's according to the chronology of the people. A big applause for Rebecca Ahlen. Hi, Rebecca.
Hi.
All right. So, Rebecca, you are the leader of the Media Innovation Center here in Babelsberg, right?
Yes.
And you worked as a head of digital at UFO and as well head of content for Streamwerke,
sure.
Which is a daughter of ZDF Enterprise,
yes.
right? Yes. So you know how to shape the future, correct?
I know what has to be done, yes, to some extent, but I'm not an expert in everything.
Not yet.
Not yet.
Who knows what the future
yes.
brings? So you have 30 seconds time. Please
yes.
define the following. Utopia.
I kind of figured that was going to be it.
Yeah, it's an easy game for it.
Well, I think Utopia is more than a dream. I think Utopia is a world where we would all like to live, be happy, feel valued and heard, and important. And that's something that the media has to do to enable so that we can have this utopia.
All right, thank you very much. Your time's up. But please feel free to take a seat wherever you want to. So next in line, her name is Tabea Jezik. She's co-founder of hostwriter.org, and hostwriter.org is a really impressive project. A big applause for Tabea Jezik. Hi, Tabea. You have 4,000 journalists all over the world, plus 140 countries are working with you together. And congratulations, hostwriter.org just turned 5 years, right?
Yeah, actually we launched here at the Republica 5 years ago, so I'm very happy to be back. Thanks a lot for having me.
Interesting, right? So a project could last 5 years, that's not the normal anymore,
yeah,
right?
3 years you're dead usually. I think 1.5 years is kind of the crucial point. So 5, let's see, how about the next 5 years?
Right. So journalism is a big thing in your life, right? So that's the reason for hostwriter.org, right? And it's all about ethics, it's all about the journalist code. So how important is it for you today? So how important is it to shape the future?
Is it already the term that I should define
No,
in 30
not yet,
seconds,
no.
or is that still a question? No, why it's important? I mean, like, obviously, it's nothing new that journalism is under attack. We have this whole thing, like, democracy is under threat. Journalists have a big part to play. But then, what's the business model? We live in a platform, we live in a world that is dominated by platforms. So, of course, it's incredibly important. And I don't want to say that I have all the answers, but I hope I have some bits of utopian thought that might be a piece of the puzzle that can lead us the way.
All right, that fits quite good to the term that I'm going to pronounce to you now. So you got 30 seconds for dystopia.
Dystopia, how fun.
What?
Well, dystopia, let's see. We don't have any journalism anymore. We only have PR. Everybody's doing a wonderful job while we have such a crazy, fucking great life, and we are all happy, and there's no climate change, and there's like, who are you? And we're all friends and buddies, and we don't have any more meaningful conversations because we are so cool, and we don't care, and it's all about the surface. And isn't that the brave new world?
It is. That was dystopian, right? The language dystopian. Right. Thank you very much. Take a seat, feel free.
Thanks.
Tabea Zizek.
Here.
All right, and I made it a little tiny game, so I checked the tweets and retweets from every person here on stage. So next in line, his name is Manouchehr Shamsrizi, and he's, I'm sorry to say that aloud, a bit weird to read about you because you do a lot. So you are a global justice fellow at Yale University. You are a global shaper of the World Economic Forum, right? Is that correct? You are one of the main co-founders of RetroBrain. RetroBrain put up a gaming console for seniors, right? For elderly people, right? And you're wearing an esports shirt.
Only for you, actually.
Only for you. Thank you very much. So Manouchehr Shamsrizi, a big welcome, a big applause, please. All right. Manouchehr.
The number of tweets is only that up because of the Article 1317 discussion. I think if you would have measured before.
Yeah. All right, so it's 1,445. I checked that a couple of minutes ago.
1,000 is Article 13.
Oh, really? So this is maybe we will talk about that. So is it dystopian already?
Yeah.
Article 13 or the EUCD?
Yeah, I mean, in general, I'm pretty sure we talked about that, but I don't know how many of you guys have been aware about the Mueller report on the Trump investigation that came out a few days ago. Last time I checked was 2 days ago, and already specialized media said that it was automatically denied of being uploaded on specific platforms, I think 32 times.
All right.
Because of
some measurements, some algorithms.
Yeah.
Dude, this is about utopia, not dystopia.
Nice.
I just wanted to tell you that again. So, again, 30 seconds time. Your term is diversity, Manu.
Oh, I think diversity is actually the world we live in, but not the world we've looked at so far. So the reality is complex, the reality is beautifully diverse. It's not what we have made out of the world in the media so far, but the more diverse you are in all types of definition, the closer you are to the reality, knowing that you'll never get there.
Thank you very much. Take a seat.
Thank you.
So that's Manu. Coming up next, with an incredible number of 4,388 tweets, let's welcome from the UK. He flew in at 4 o'clock in the morning from Stanston. He got a lot of coffee there. John Hill, please. A big applause to John Hill. And John Hill, you have been a creative designer for The Times. Hey, John.
Yes.
Then you've been a creative director for The Telegraph.
Yep.
And really, not long ago, you co-founded Tortoise Media.
Yeah, not co-founder, partner.
A partner.
Partner.
So there's a difference between
Yes,
that, right?
yeah,
Okay, I'm still learning. All right. So Tortoise Media, that's all about slow journalism. Can you talk about slow journalism then?
Well, it's an antidote to everything that's been going on for the last decade, getting faster and faster and faster and faster. And eventually there's a point where everyone, I think we're worried, is just going to switch off the media because everything is just going too fast. The volume is too great. Too many channels, too many noises. And I think the one thing we've set out to try and do is slow that down and maybe help people make a bit more sense of what's going on in the world. So that, for me, is the definition of slow media.
All right. We're going to talk about animals. You know that, right?
Yeah, please.
I found out who's the general predator of tortoises.
You told me.
So, again, for you, 30 seconds time. Please define the following innovation.
Innovation. I thought you might say that. Innovation, I think, has to be something that doesn't exist. It has to be something that perhaps in a dream way can't exist. So you have to push yourself beyond anything that we know about now. I think as well it's about bringing together people from different strands, different walks of life, scientists working with designers, journalists working with, I don't know, videographers, and getting that mix of things that will create something brand new that no one's ever seen before. For me, that's innovation.
Thank you very much. Time's up. Please take a seat. All right, so 4 are on the stage already. Good words. Could be a definition for Utopia as well, I think. All right, and last but not least, his name is Frederick Fisher. He is co-founder of Pict.com. Pict.com is a platform where you have 130 curators, right? A big applause for Frederick Fisher, please.
By the way, I'm also not a co-founder. I'm the chief editor.
Oh, that's different to partner, right?
The only co-founder, 2 co-founders.
A lot of founders and partners.
Very flexible word to use these days.
Yeah, I guess, yeah. So, but you're also a board member of WOSA, which is the biggest think tank here in Germany about innovation, right?
Media innovation, yeah.
Media innovation. So that's the reason why you're here on stage, I
Yeah.
guess, I assume. But please tell us something about Pict.com.
Yeah, Pict is like a program guide for the good internet. We are all aware of the normal internet, which turns worse and worse. But there's so much great stuff out there still. It's just so hard to find. So if you're looking for that stuff, just go on pict.de and you're going to find the good journalism, the good documentaries, all the good stuff that's still there, but it's like buried under all the trash.
Handpicked by real people. Is that correct?
That's correct, yeah.
How innovative. Yeah. So there's a tag, and then we start this whole discussion, right? You have 30 seconds time for the following. Medienstaatsvertrag.
Oh my God. All right. It's despite the clunky sound of the word, it's incredibly important, and it's just not up to date, unfortunately. I mean, it's basically like the foundation of the information ecosystem that we all live in, and it needs an update. It needs an update really quickly. So all the public broadcasters that we fund with a lot of money are actually able to put all the stuff in the internet the way that it's supposed to, and not delete it after a short while.
Time's up. Thank you very much. All right, so take a seat. And now we have the panel full. That was funny, I think. Thank you very much for your time. And now, according to you, John, let's slow down a bit, right?
Slow down.
That's awkward, isn't it?
Can be.
Right, there's Republica, the media convention, everyone is happy, everyone is getting data into the brain and being really fast. Many people trying to Twitter stuff and Instagram stuff. How does that fit into our reality right now, being slow?
I really think there's a genuine concern. I'm sure it's the same in Berlin, definitely in London, that the volume and the scale and the bombardment of news is a simple term, but media in general is just, it's reached a sort of crisis. And we definitely are worried in London that people are just choosing to opt out. And we talk about detox a lot, and I think media detox is a real thing that we're deeply worried about. So part of what we're doing is trying to resolve that. We're going to just do 1 piece a day, 5 on Saturday, 5 on Sunday, so no more than 15, 20 pieces a week, which the publishers I was at before were doing 400 pieces a day. So that sort of shows the difference in scale. And we just recognize that people have a finite amount of time and attention, and I think really, we'll get onto this I'm sure, but value also things that have been researched carefully, written carefully, checked carefully, and things that maybe have a lifespan more than just 1 minute or 2 minutes or 24 hours. I mean, to think that our time frame has gone from maybe a whole day to 24 hours to 5 minutes to a minute, I mean, it's insane. So this is the thing we're trying to resolve in the journalism we're producing right now. We're only a month old, so there's a long journey to go. For tortoises, we're quite young. We've got a long way to go before we reach a grand old age. But we think
tortoises can grow old, right? So that's the reason why you picked tortoises, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Are there other animals that maybe stands for the same values as you just mentioned out? Tabea, do you have an idea? So if you want to find an animal which slows down as well, but as well stands for the code, the journalist code, the ethics, the values that John and his team, Totus Media, has. Do you find any other animal for that?
It's pretty tough to come up with another animal that is as slow as a tortoise. But I don't know, like my name, Tabea, means gazelle. So to introduce another animal and maybe another move that might also be maybe just as important as the slowing down, having a proper look, I think we need gazelles who jump. Like, take my name out of the equation and just kind of, okay, let's put this in. Let's take this
interesting,
animal.
your last name, you told me that, it's Polish and it means a little sin, right?
Yeah, it's little sin jumping, but well, what I want to say is next to the slowing down, I actually do think that we need to jump. Like, we need to jump, not in terms of ahead, not in terms of speeding up, becoming quicker, but I mean, I was told to focus on the positive here, and I'm all for innovation, and yes, we can do things, but I mean, I think it's not a secret that we actually really have to change things. Like, we cannot go on like that. So I really think we need to learn from the gazelle and make it jump, and just to introduce like one small word, what I feel is very important, and that what also we with Host try to do is this cross-border collaboration. So collaborative journalism, like not this idea of, oh, me, I'm the journalist, the one and only single genius in the world that can tell this story, and I will not tell anybody about it, and I will not share my resources, and I keep everything to myself. I think this is like not suitable for the world we live in. Migration, climate change, international crime, how do you cover this as one single person? So collaboration and cross-border collaboration, because apart from the stories that we do hear, I would like to raise the questions, what stories do we not hear? And there's so much out there, so let's make a jump.
Yeah, Manu, you're nodding, so you agree on what Tabea said.
Yeah, and I mean, we've seen that we have seen the positive impact old school journalism had over the last years when you're thinking about this collaborative approach in the field of investigative journalism. Right, Luxembourg papers and Panama, and I stopped counting the amount of papers we have been leaked, but which not only have been leaked, but have been analyzed and brought to the public attention in different countries at the same time. And I believe that's a very positive outcome of the way of collaboration we just heard about. Let me add another thing, if I may, because I also totally agree with what we heard in the beginning. I'm just a bit more relaxed, because if you look at these phenomena from the perspective of humankind's general development, which if you come from philosophy is a usual position to have and makes many things relaxed, then we technically have...
And weird a bit. Sometimes weird a bit. Yeah.
Weird but still relaxed. But no, my point is we've been there before. So, for example, now that we're in Berlin, Paul Lazarsfeld, an Austrian theoretic on sociology and journalism in the early 20th century made this argument that the sheer amount of newspapers that are out there, physical newspapers, if you remember, will lead to a society where no one is doing any political work or activism or charity anymore, because as a good citizen you always want to stay informed, and if there's a new newspaper with a new dimension or perspective or political spectrum, you have to read that newspaper as well. And his fear was that everyone will keep on reading newspapers the whole day. So you're informed at 5, 6 p.m. in the evening after reading all of them, and then you don't have time and energy to change anything about the state of the world. And it sounds similar to the things that we are hearing today, and we could go back to Immanuel Kant. You know that story, right? There's the great enlightenment was afraid about the technology of book printing going wrong. There are exchange of letters of Kant in which he writes to a friend saying that the fact that young people are reading books now instead of talking to their parents as they should at the evening table, at the dinner table, which I don't know who of you guys are parents, but I think many of you guys would be happy if your kids would read books at the dinner table. Kant's argument was that that's going to be the end of society. And that's not what books are about. But no families, no society. So we've heard this alarmism before, not saying it's not valuable, but I think we'll manage this time as well.
Yeah, but nowadays books are smartphones, right? And we have the possibility to read everything, whether it's fake or not fake, whether we are able to distinguish between that, right? So books are quite heavy right now.
Yeah, but still we have books, and still we're sitting here as if there would be a virtual, Lagerfeuer, you would say in German. We're sitting here as if we would meet in an ancient Greek forum. We could do this online, but still there seems to be a desire for these old cultural techniques not to go away.
Yeah, some people are watching this online. Hello.
Hi.
You're not old in
no
Greek,
offense.
I guess. Rebecca, let's talk about innovation, because when we have analysis, when we have facts, when we have data of the human mankind so far, right? Is that a good position to innovate new stuff that makes things better?
Well, actually there is. I mean, there are amazing, these are just 4 examples of people who are doing great things with new technology, with sort of taking new stake, with enabling people to connect all over the world. And we also have several projects in our roster that are really innovative, that use technology in a positive way to make it easier. I think we talked about this earlier. There's a tendency to always see the bad things that you can do with technology, and it is scary. And I think it is quite a lot of things that can go wrong. But there is quite a big pool of people coming up now that are saying, okay, I know this could make it easier for a journalist in a small town to sort of do great stuff, or I have this tool that makes research really easy because I grab all the data and I sort them for you. Or I use sensors to do journalism. And I think that gives me hope that we are on a way that we can create something utopian. I think we just have to sort of take our stand and be a bit more courageous when it comes to the conflicts. And I think that is also because we are in a sort of it is an age thing, and I think it's sort of
an age.
I think it has to do with generations clashing still, even though we are all getting older and younger people are coming in.
That's a normal
thing. May I add a thought?
Yeah, always. Sure. Just keep talking. Feel free to talk.
I want to add a thought. I totally agree with you. Or I like this approach of. I share more this view of kind of running in circles, like we run into the same question of, oh my God, distraction, information overload came up with the books, or like we see this repeated again and again and again. So I share this idea that it's more running in circles instead of linear development and everything gets better. Yes, but I just wanted to add, I think the kind of like the big data amounts of information that are available today and how they impact real life, so kind of change the societal setup. I think this is where I'm not exactly sure if it's just the same thing as in the old days, and we'll get over it because it's already changing what is real. So this is maybe a little question mark I would have.
But I think the fear of loss of control is the same, and that's been all over the generations. And I think now it's even harder to have control. I mean, technology has made it impossible to keep.
Let's talk about the
It's an assumption in itself to say that a control is a good thing, by the way.
Exactly.
Let's talk about lost control. John, what about Brexit then?
I nearly put a disclaimer saying, by the way, I'll come and talk on this panel, but I'm not going to talk about Brexit.
I was just kidding. No,
but for real, it's obviously a story that's consuming Britain at the moment and large parts of Europe. There's so much hype and probably misinformation, and I think the need for clarity and for some honest reporting and journalism in the old-fashioned sense is greater than ever in that particular story. What more can I say? I don't want to be drawn on any particular.
No, it's not about the politics, but about the maybe the task that ourselves, maybe as media innovators, as workers in the media, is it possible to kind of have that shell as a tortoise?
Yeah.
To survive this bombardment of media, of questions, of people who don't understand the complexity, which that doesn't make them bad or dumb, but it's complex right now. Right?
I get it. It's a good question, because I think there are two things that we're trying to do differently that will hopefully both innovate but also help resolve some of these problems. So the big thing that we have, certainly in the UK, around and America and other places, that you have media owners, proprietors. They own the publishing, they own the presses, they own, therefore, to a large extent, the message. And I think that has got very difficult now. So we don't have an outright owner, which is a clear way that we've constructed the business model. So therefore, we can't be tarred with that brush. Lots of big British media institutions have this kind of, oh, well, you're speaking on behalf of this person or that person. I think that hasn't helped the Brexit story. And then the other thing we're doing, which is, to your point, really about building bridges, is having a bit like this, open discussions every single evening in our newsroom. So we push all the tables and chairs back, and we invite our members into the newsroom and guests, and we will talk it out. We will have conversations. We'll have debates. We'll have quite lively debates, because at least that way it's an authentic two-way discussion. You can't then write a piece in the following days or weeks saying, oh, well, you know, we found out this, that, and the other. The conversation was in the room. And it helps really get an informed opinion across. So that, I think, has been an enormous change for us, that it's not just sources say, you know, as a kind of unqualified pull quote in a piece. It's we have human beings, the quote-unquote experts in the room. We invite them in. We have our members in the room. We interrogate those things. And then we create journalism off the back of that conversation. So that's a big difference for us.
So we can scale this idea up, right? So Frederik, you do a lot of stuff, I assume, and I've read a lot about you, but you're also one of the persons who initiated Co-Dörfer. So like your room, but more like in the land and not in the big cities, right? So can you tell us a bit about Co-Dörfer? Because that's one of the projects that is highly interesting when we think about utopian fantasies. Let's say it's fantasy. Maybe in the end of this panel we have facts, right? Okay, so let's hear about Co-Dörfer, please.
Yeah, so it's very closely connected to innovation. And it's kind of weird that we have a field like living apartments, the way that we live, that's so important for everyone, but we hardly see any innovation in it. Like we live the same way that we lived for decades. The whole process is more or less the same. The only kind of optimization happens for the people who make money with flats, but for the people who want to just have a decent living in a city, in a big city, it's getting increasingly tough, as we all know. And there's not really a lot of hope on the horizon. So what we want to do is enable people to shape the world that they're living in again, which is impossible in the big cities this day. So the idea of Co-Dörfer basically just is to have 50 small houses, and as a community also share buildings, like a co-working space, like a big community kitchen, a cafe. The community can decide exactly what they want to have. Because what we found out is that a lot of people, especially working in the digital realm, they're increasingly tired and exhausted, because just working on the internet the whole day is more and more exhausting every day, because there's notifications all the time, new channels popping up all the time. But then also the city, of course. The more people they live, the worse the traffic is, the more stressful that is as well. So a lot of people actually want a different life, but it's so hard to get a new start without a social network, without anyone knowing. So we would all move to the countryside without anyone knowing there. It could be the most pristine landscape, and it still would be not really a cool life. So that's basically the whole innovation about the Co-Dörfer is get a community together and build the way that, or build the world, the small, tiny world that you want to live in, and just do it. It's not crazy expensive. It's you don't need high tech for it. You just need people.
But you still need internet, right?
Sure. Yes.
For working and working purposes.
Yeah.
Gaming purposes and stuff like that, right?
Sure.
Okay, so this is a political theme, right? So getting internet everywhere in the countryside, in every nation, right? That's a big problem.
Yeah. We're not there yet.
Really, I found that news a couple of years ago. So there were the projects of big companies like Facebook and Google as well, huge drones up in the air. And making internet for regions where there's no real chance for a terrestrial cable, right? So many people find that really cool, really sci-fi-esque, right? So, but maybe it's a bit dystopian as well. So, have you heard about those big drones getting internet for regions? Have you heard of that? Is that dystopian or is that utopian for yourself, Manu?
I think it's both. I think it's a very German approach to think of such a development as being either utopian or
it's a binary,
dystopian, right? There's the German philosopher Johannes Strasser made this point a few decades ago when he said that the danger and the risk of every utopia thinking is that once you realize that this is your vision of utopia, you somehow have the urge to convince others. And from there, his point is, it's a little step to the point of if they don't get it, I will force them to understand. And that's where every totalitarian system has ended up, right? Started with a utopia and then maybe ended up in a totalitarian system. So I think these things and developments should be thought of from the urgent impact. Right? I mean, that's why I'm a big fan of Muhammad Yunus and others. If you think from the real impact on the SDGs, for example, which is the only framework for utopia we have, everyone agreed on somehow. Every company, every nation, every NGO is related to the SDGs in the end. And having internet access via a Facebook drone, I would argue, is better than not having internet access at all. Would it be better to have a neutral NGO, the state? Would it be maybe even is it maybe does it need to have the state involved because it's a very fundamental infrastructure? Yes, of course. Does it help someone who does not have internet at the moment that we're sitting in warm and Glasfaser, hopefully reach Republika 2019, agreeing on Facebook shouldn't do this? It doesn't really help him. So Facebook, I mean, that's the point. It's both. And then if we start with a very dystopian and maybe make the dystopian aspects of it less and less and less, I think that's the way to go.
Yeah.
I think, of course, I would, like, if I live in, like, JVD, very far away, rural
German word for somewhere
very far outside, with no internet.
Very Berlin word.
Of course, I would do it. I mean, for me, the question is: does it mean I only get internet access to access Facebook, or is it a general access? So I think this is the one question. And if it's a general access, of course, then well, I would take the Facebook drones, no problem. But I think it's also maybe. What I feel is sometimes missing in I believe when we talk about utopia, like it's a lot of times it's a very technical focused discussion. So it's of course internet. We all totally agree that it's like the lives, like you guys need fast internet for the Ökodorf, and this is clearly we need the digital, like the technological infrastructure. But what I feel is like yet another story, which is equally important, is the human factor in this. And
everyone nods. Yes, humans, right.
And if I may go back to this innovation and thinking of utopia, one of my biggest problems with journalism that I see, and why it's this whole thing of collaboration, cross-border journalism, having diverse perspectives, is that I do, like, if I may propose this, what I find as a problem in journalism is that all the fact-checking, as far as I can see, is focused on technological questions. We need, like, is it true or false? We need some fact-checker, we need this, we need that. But what I feel is, what it fails to start with is, like, okay, who is telling the story? And like I just know numbers from UK and US who are kind of driving the international reporting, I would say very highly shaping what we know of the world. And they have numbers like 80% to 90% in the newsrooms are white people. And I think when we look at Germany, I'm not even aware if there's exact numbers out there, but I think with a nice guess, I would say it's between 80 and 90% white, Bio-Deutsch, academic background, and for sure no physical or mental disabilities, age range is very similar. So I think when we have a newsroom where the huge majority of people are alike.
So diversity.
Yeah, and I mean, I think like this diversity question, it's not a question of integration and like let's be politically correct and let's be nice to each other. It is a question of quality. Like we are missing stories when we don't have these diverse perspectives. So I think apart from having Facebook drones, I also want to have in the eco village, I want to have diverse people who can fact check each other's, especially in journalism, with putting light on the blind spots that we have.
So a bit of the point that you made, right? So this is a binary question: is it good or bad? Is it black or white?
It's more than binary.
Once again, it's an ancient old discussion. Again, when you go back to Kant, there has been his idea of let's make people travel from village to village and read out the books, because we won't get the books back, and only the enlightened would be able to read the books anymore. But let's send someone with them, another scholar, who is criticizing what you just heard. So from village to village, you have a book author making his point, and you would have an advocatus diaboli traveling with him saying, that's all nonsense you just heard. And the studies we have, the few in social psychology, Stanford is doing a lot on this, on how a group like you guys, of which we believe we're all highly educated, we are trying to do good and all these things, how we change in our attitude and our political belief on an issue before and after we've been informed neutrally by different stakeholders. It's non-debatable. It works. And the fascinating thing about that, you have Fischer. The guy who's doing that at Stanford is Fischer. You need to check that.
Just like you.
It works in any political system. He has done that in communistic countries. He's done that in tribal areas. He's done that in democratic areas. The moment you bring together, and his utopia, in the end, based on modern media communication, was that you don't need an election and a representative parliamentary system anymore, because now we could just bring together people based on their statistical role they play, so it would be highly diverse, and then you would have to inform these people about different point of views, and you would, through communication, lead us out of the situation where, for example, young people like Fridays for Future don't have a voice because they cannot vote and thus are not represented in the parliamentary democratic system.
But the example you gave was not the example of Kant with his advocatus diaboli, because I think this is the problem, to think that everything has two sides. This is a wrong assumption. It is still based on journalism that we have to overcome.
How many like climate crisis, and then you have someone arguing against it, and it makes it look as if that both would be valuable positions.
But this works in the media landscape, right? So the media landscape is pretty easy right now. The guy or the newspaper who screams out loudest will be heard in the first place, right? So you just raised your finger.
Yeah, I just wanted to comment on the Facebook drones, and want to bring in an analogy. Because you said it's better than no information, I would agree. But I think this whole analogy with food is very helpful when we think about information. So if you confront someone who's starving with McDonald's, of course McDonald's is better than no food at all. Yeah. But it's obviously not good. Yeah. And I think it's really we should, and that would be something like a media utopia for me, if we get something of this organic movement, energy and mindset into the way that we consume information. There is really cheap crap calories, crap information, and there's this more sustainable stuff. And sometimes it's more expensive, sometimes it's a bit hard to find, sometimes it smells funny, but it's more sustainable.
Well, reality is that we don't have real food anymore. So there are a lot of companies out there right now who would just do biochemical food, right? It's really efficient. You don't need all the stress of cooking and tasting. No, it's really efficient. That's all you need. All the nutrition. I don't know what's in there, right? You just drink it and you're good to go and go to work.
But again, there's no utopian, dystopian, black and white. Yeah. Because if you think about lab-grown meat, it might also have a very positive impact.
You are the optimistic people in the room. I assume so. It's really hard for me to be the dystopian guy.
Optimistic in the end.
Let's have another mind game, right? So you guys are like superheroes right now. So you're the optimistic ones, right? Like the Avengers, but in the media landscape. So what's the biggest threat you occur, John?
I think finding a business model that works. So
just business model man is the main threat then.
Yeah, so it kind of resolves some of the things we've been talking about as well, because I think I think we've seen this happen a lot again in the UK. Your sort of McDonald's analogy. So we throw out cheap snack food journalism. It is a kind of race to the bottom, and I think we're reaching, if not the bottom, we've kind of bounced off the bottom, and now we're either gone straight through the floor or we're coming back up. I hope we're coming back up. We're at Utopia, so we're coming back up. So we are finding new business models to make journalism sustainable, but we've got to get used to this new diet, and it's a bit more fiber in the diet. You've got to have a bit more of an appetite to eat healthily, and I think that means getting yourself off the shit and eating good stuff, and that means maybe media owners have to get used to smaller audiences. I think that was the sort of crack cocaine for big publishers, is like, how do you sustain this volume play over a long period of time? And I think what we're realizing now is that eats up your business model in the other direction of high quality journalism. And I think, yes, you can argue that you have to have all this advertising and scale to fund the, I don't know, foreign reporting, but you also have to build around that a lot of crappy snack journalism. So it's a real mess. What we're trying to do slightly differently at Tortoise is have a media, we're having partners rather than advertisers. So we don't have advertising, we don't have pop-up ads and programmatic ads. We just have partners who come on board for a year-long partnership, and they'll pay some money for us to follow subjects that they're interested in, but that way then we can build a slightly more sustainable model. I think that's the biggest threat for us right now, is finding good business models that make journalism sustainable and results in good quality journalism rather than this kind of snack food.
Yeah, but this is a kind of a privileged state, right? So to find and to be able to find an animal who gets money, right? Tortoise is a good, it's a good example for that.
Well,
right?
I mean, and that's on the corporate side, but the other part is the membership side. So individuals buying into membership of what we're doing, and that on Kickstarter we got the biggest backing on any journalism project on Kickstarter. And it was because people were like, Christ, somebody now is doing this, finally, thank you, and like, have some of my money to help fund you. We're seeing The Guardian in London has a similar thing. It's just turned profit for the first time in a very, very long time. Yeah. And they didn't have a paywall, the traditional paywall. They just said at the end of each article, it would be really great if you could make a small donation to help us fund the journalism. And now they're turning a profit. And you would never have thought that before. But slowly, I think the public is getting used to the idea that you have to pay for this quality. You can't just get the free crap and have it sustain itself. So, but for me, that was, over the last few years, I think that's been the biggest challenge, is reconciling a business model with your journalism ambitions. Those two things.
Rebecca, back to this example of superheroes. So, and you as the leader of the Media Innovation Center in Babelsberg. So, how can you innovate something that conquer new ways of business models then? Do you have projects right now that shifts it up?
We do have, well, I think the business model thing is sort of, that's the holy grail of journalism. And I think everyone is sort of digging, and I've spoken to lots of people who have interesting ideas. I think there were many mistakes made earlier, years ago, and we're sort of finding ourselves in the midst of that now, but I think it's going to turn around. I think it's going to have to be paid services, and there are some solutions of blockchain solutions and other aspects to sort of find good ways. I think, and I just want to say, I think what's more important, I think it's to sort of learn to celebrate complexity again, and I think that's what all of you said. Like, we have to find a way to get people to sort of not be afraid of not taking the easy way out, and that's by paying, that's by sort of saying, okay, we want to hear different stories, we want to read long stories, we want to read interesting pieces, we want to use technology that's a bit complex, we have to understand the technology that's behind. I think that goes for journalists just as way as yeah, Manu has to leave.
Manu has to leave, yeah. So.
To get his train to Hamburg.
Not going to online marketing, Rox. Promise.
Yeah. Manu, thank you for your time. Thank you for being here. A big applause for Manouchehr Shamsrizi, please. Manu.
And don't forget, in answering his question, he brought up the Avengers.
Yeah.
So maybe science fiction also has the solution. What are our Infinity Stones, right?
Well, there are
What is our
dystopian
AI
sci-fi
job is
books
that-
as well.
Last movie sucked, sorry.
Thank you, Manu. Right. So maybe he has to go to the US again. So Manu was invited by Obama for his thoughts. Interesting. So now he's going back to Hamburg. Thank you very much, Manu. All right. All right. Yeah. So
I think that's sort of the central, and there are lots of people who are trying to find new ways and finding solutions in that way.
Yeah.
So I think superhero-wise, that would solve, if we had sort of dealt with that problem, like taking away that fear, I think we would have solved a lot of other problems as well. And I think that a lot of things would align, and I think that has to be our focus for the next few years, both for journalists, both for consumers, readers, and whatever you have, and for politicians. We have to have a different approach.
So, but following your words, so there is a core problem right now, right? So, and for any problem, there has to be solutions as well, right? So this is your optimistic view. And each of you have projects that use technology to conquer this core problem. Is that correct? So how will we be able to use that technology as well? So is it regulated? Is it just going to the internet and just watching tortoise media or a host writer and following your rules and just make it up? Aren't we then in a kind of a market race already when I just copy your style?
Speaking of the market race, and that's like I had this feeling. It's difficult. I try to get two things apart, which are interconnected, but allow me to try this trial. I fully agree. Of course, it's the holy grail. I mean, this business model question is like the killer, and this is like the most important question for any startup, of course. But I would just like to really encourage if there's also maybe other founders in the room or thinking like, I mean, maybe some aspect of this utopia is to allow ourselves to at least like a couple of moments a day, or like to allow us a time period where we focus on. The mission already sounds so stupid, but you know what I mean? Like to really find out, okay, what's the problem? What do we want to do about it? And then as a second step to think about the money. Because I also feel that money can be, like if people would have asked us in the first day we launched, okay, what's your business model? What's your business? They keep asking this question. Of course, this is a very important question and we work on it all the time. Yeah. But we still don't really have the answer out there yet. So I think if
you made 5 years, right? So.
Yeah, like we have money until 2020, and then it's like an ongoing process, and all the time building on this. I just really want us to also allow the space to not only not to start with the money. I don't want to sound naive. Like I know, of course, it's important, but if we, I think you can destroy any innovation, any thought when you don't allow this experimental phase. So like to first find your voice. Okay, what is my project? What am I out there? Can I build a community around it? Is there a need for it? How can I improve? Like surviving all these stages. So I don't know. Maybe this is like if we as a society agree on that journalism matters, then I think we cannot only individualize this problem whilst you figure out your business model. I think if we agree that journalism matters, I think we have to have different strands where money comes from. And I think I honestly feel it's too much to ask from the founders to each figure out their own business model that will run forever. So I think, please, like some public money, some foundation money. There's more and more coming from philanthropy, then some for-profit branch. But let's be open to a mix, diverse revenue streams, and not ask this one question: what's your business? I can't hear it anymore. It's like, please.
So what's your business model then?
Too long, didn't read.
No, that's interesting for me as well. No, I'm following your words, but yes, money is important for sure. Money is important, but again, you're co-author of a project, right? This is all about self-sustaining as well, right? So a self-sustaining society, maybe limited, physically limited in a small housing number, right? But let's talk about self-sustainability. So is that really a socially approachable approach that's realistic for someone in the future?
Yeah, I definitely do think so. And the way that we organize the co-author is via a co-op, a cooperation. And I think that's also something that we should focus on more in the media sphere, or in the economy overall, because we have this dichotomy. We have like, on the one hand, we have like the free market, and on the other hand, we have like, yeah, what is there? Like a little bit of public broadcasting. I mean, okay, in Germany it's like quite gigantic when it comes to the budget. We have foundations that enable a lot of valuable stuff, but I think it would be so valuable to really focus on innovation, not only in the free market where most of the innovation happens, because that's where all the money is, or most of the money is, but really think about like what at the end of the day really makes our life better, and how can we go about in a more smart and sustainable way about this. So when it comes to about housing, I mean, Manu would say, we've been there before, and it's true. I mean, we've been through housing crisis, and the answer was co-ops. And I don't know why, but during the last decades, we sort of forgot about that model, even though it works. It works over 100 years very well. So I think
not in the big cities right now, but not in the big cities right now. So a big political theme, but
yeah, I mean they do work. They're just too small, right? I mean like you can't apply it to be included in a co-op anymore because they all have like a waiting list of hundreds of people because everyone wants to get into a co-op. So I do believe that we focus much too often and much too just way too much on the latest trend and everything that's kind of like hip and flashy in the startup scene. But what we've learned, or at least what I took away from the last 10 years in the startup game and like being involved with innovation, is that the things that make my life immediately better, they didn't really improve. And I think that's a big failure for what we call the innovation ecosystem or the startup ecosystem. I mean, so, and I think that's something to take away for both, like the way that we live, the way that we approach something like Co-Dörfer, like build our own little world, but also the media. So my utopia would be to have the public broadcasters strengthened, because I do believe that it is something like a co-op in a sense that it's between the market and like kind of like really public in the way that it's state-sponsored, so it's something in between. One of those like very valuable hybrids that don't obey to the market rules alone. But at the moment, it's not working. I mean, for the younger generations. I mean, there's nothing really. Very few offers for them, and also the way the channels that it's distributed, it's also very tricky. So my utopia for the public broadcasters actually would be to become more like a public infrastructure provider. So when we talked about the Facebook drones,
so like a platform for itself.
Yeah, exactly. I think like the real problem is not the content. There is a lot of amazing content out there. Sure, it could be more and it could be better funded,
and
but there's still
awesome
a lot of
content in Germany,
stuff out there. But what's really like threatened is the infrastructure via this content is distributed, and that's like fundamentally broken. I think the public broadcasters could be play a huge role in building this infrastructure.
That would bring us to the main topic, public value, right? So in Germany, lots of times everyone was looking to the UK. So the BBC is doing a really good job with half of the money, state-funded money, as in Germany, right? So.
No, I was just wondering, I like this pro public broadcasters. I was just curious, but do you see, like when you propose this idea that public broadcasters should become more like a provider of infrastructure, but do you see at the moment public broadcasters as friends and supporters of startups? Because that I haven't really seen so much in the past, that they would open their channels for other, other contents. I think I kind of like the idea. I haven't thought about it, but I mean, then this would also have to be some sort of partnership of like they would have to open their doors and build a bridge as well, and that I haven't seen so much. Honestly,
though we are publicly funded by the public broadcasters, so there is some innovation there. I mean, we don't have that much money, of course, but the thought is, and I think that's sort of the core, is to sort of interlink broadcasting with startups, with people with ideas, with people who are innovative and want to create something new.
But then again,
in a very small way, there is something like that. There are other houses like us in other areas in Germany. But yes, it's still a long way to go.
But then again, you need some structure. You need some data to distinguish which project, which startup you pick, and to fund that project, right? So, is the first question the business model then?
No. Not for us. I mean, there is often we're not an incubator in that way, and I think that's the wrong way to go for these type of projects. Our first questions are, what's the idea behind, and what's the value for as many people as possible, specifically those that don't have big funding behind themselves, like local journalism, for example. And how can we help them, and how can we sort of connect them with people who can help them grow bigger and grow more successful. So yes, I think to some extent the business model problem is important, but we can focus only on that, because that way we're only going to get people that are doing influencer videos for the rest of their lives.
It's funny, right? So the time's almost up, right? And you were here in Germany, and yes, we want to talk about the future, but we stayed at the regulation topic. Is that normal for you? What was your expectation to come here to talk about the Utopia?
I was curious to see what you guys were all thinking about. I was less familiar with the sort of state, the scale of the state broadcaster, and obviously, in the UK, that's big for us too, the BBC, and that you often hear traditional newspapers complaining and saying, well, we can't compete with this because it's so huge and public financing. But I think what it does do is keep a sort of quality sort of threshold for us. And then the other thing I think that we've sort of not really talked about much today. We talk about a lot in our office is this this sense that the media business is also don't take this the wrong way, but it's also an entertainment business. We have to keep people stimulated and their eyeballs on us, and so we have a lot of conversation in our office about a diet of spinach and cheesecake. So we feel like we make a lot of spinach for people. Media people, we do a lot of kind of hard, maybe dystopian sort of stories. We follow lots of terrible things going on in the world. And if there's one thing I think it's useful to remind everyone is just, from time to time we need to make some cheesecake for our audience as well, and remember these are human stories that we're telling, and make some fun and.
What was the last cheesecake you published then?
Oh, good question. Well, sometimes the cheesecake can come not just in the type of story, but in the way you make the story. So we're having a lot of fun right now with I've set myself a bit of a goal to try and design everything for a mobile phone first, which is not a new idea, but trying to tell long, difficult stories through a screen this big is really challenging. I think the fun thing, we have this, doesn't sound cheesecake at all, but it was quite fun when you look at it. We have this infrastructure problem in the UK where we're trying to build a new railway, and it's costing so much money that it's just not even beginning. So we did a thing where you have to scroll down your phone and see the amount of money we're spending on this tiny little bit of railway versus how much track you could get in other countries. And
nice.
In China, you just keep scrolling.
It's a bit playful.
Scrolling, and the money would have stretched from one city to another city. In the UK, you hardly get anywhere. So anyway, my point really is that the cheesecake is an important part of our job too. So I think with a utopian hat on, I think we need to remember that too.
Do we have, as the panelists here right now, do we have the hope, or maybe more than hope? Do we believe really that a cheesecake will help our society? Should we all have more cheesecake then? Is that the main?
It's got to be a blended diet. It can't just be cheesecake. But
no, I think honestly, I think this already is binary thinking. There's cheesecake and there's spinach.
Damn it!
And I think this is wrong. I think there's in my utopia there's only cheesecake. There's only cheesecake, and I think if we have diverse perspectives, we do find the cheesecake of the story.
But is it good or bad? No, just kidding.
So I really like already thinking this idea of difficult questions, politics. This. People will not want to read it, or this is the spinach version. I think that this is a frame that I don't find helpful. So I think we should get rid of it and do with
that sounds so easy. Let's just get rid of it. So I think mankind, you spend a lot of thousands of years to think binary, like heaven and hell, and good or bad, and right and left, and stuff like that.
But we are too alike in the newsrooms. So I think when the many people have the same assessment of a situation, of a story, then of course we come with the cheesecake and spinach. So I really for me, the big power of collaborative journalism, and especially cross-border journalism, is that we discover aspects that we haven't even thought about. Or for example, if you take China, I mean, there's a lot to criticize about China, of course. But I'm so bored of only reading the story of this is going to be like this is turning the social credits, and oh my God, this is like 1984.
Maybe they have rice cake already. We don't know
like a colleague of mine, she's working on Me Too cases in China. Like there's a huge feminist development there. Where do I read this? So why is all this? Why do I have the single spinach story of China? So what I really want to fight for, and what my utopia looks like, is having like exciting different new angles, and then you see there's only cheesecake, I'm sure.
When will we have cheesecake for everyone? In years, Frederick.
I don't know. I mean, it's all in our hands, right? I mean, we have amazing tools with technology. We can organize easily as a community, as a group. So I think it's basically really up to us. We could have cheesecake every day if we want that. And I actually want to maybe end with an invitation to bake your own cheesecake or work on the infrastructure problem, because I organized the so-called Summer of Pioneers for a town called Wittenberge. It's between Hamburg and Berlin. It has an ICE stop, and we can collect.
Huge news.
We can get 20 people who can live for free, get like a flat for free, a furnished flat,
shotgun,
get a co-working space for free, and get access to an amazing community of 20 creative people who
for
have
how long, then?
6 months to work on their projects, to build a better world in whatever they feel they're working in. So whoever wants to spend like half a year for free in Wittenberge with a co-working space as a community to work on your projects, please,
How many people are you at Total Media?
About 40.
Damn it! Damn it! It's just a room for 20. But maybe if you stick together,
Half
there's
of us.
cheesecake for all of us.
3 months for half, then the other half.
But you can also take part in our Utopia Parcours competition, which is open for 40 people or something, where they can learn to create prototypes for an utopian future. So yeah,
that's amazing.
I think this is a good ending, right? So we are positive. I try to be as dystopian as I can be, but I wasn't really dystopian. Thank you very much for your time. We're a bit over the scheduled time, but is there any big question of you out there? Please remember, those people don't like binary questions. Over there. All right. So now go to the microphone, please.
Is this thing on? Hi, I'm Alex. I was thinking about the consumer perspective. If you have like the perfect and innovative channel on your internet channel thingy, and you think, yeah, that's the best information you can get. Oh, perfect! And we have like 20 blog posts every day. Just read everything. What's the the utopian consumer for you? So nobody has time to read all of that, but should he have? Or is it better if you have a more open-minded consumer which just reads one thing and it's enough and he takes time the next day? But I don't really see the point of having too much and too good information if you don't have the time to use it.
I think that's a great point. Actually, that's something that was a bit missing here. But that's our fault. That the consumer perspective. I think we actually in journalism we are now going through the third crisis since the internet happened. The first was that their business model was basically destroyed. The second was that we became dependent of platforms that we don't control. And the third one, and that's where we're in right now, is that more and more people of our core audience, people like you, they really question like, is this made for me? Because a lot of people don't have that feeling that it's made for them anymore. And I think that's like actually a bigger challenge even than finding a business model, because there will be money from somewhere always, I think, for journalism, as long as it's asking this question, like has an answer to that question, like why should people care about this? And I think we're in the beginning of really like a very long and very fundamental and radical process of redefining what journalism is and how journalism can be presented so that people like you have the feeling that it really is for them and they get actually something out of it and they look forward to consume it and not have this feeling that I have to eat my spinach. Yeah, thanks for the question. I don't have, I mean, one answer actually, I mean, you can elaborate on that, of course, is less is more, for sure. I mean, we're all confronted with way too much information, and I think the actual service is to have people like you thinking really carefully, what is the one thing that you really have to know today? And that's it.
That's cheesecake, I assume, right?
But not always cheesecake.
Damn it.
I think the cheesecake analogy, and I think that sort of feeds in what Frederick just said. I think it's not just the fact that the second wave of problems for journalism was Facebook. It's sort of changed how the consumer was seen. You focused very clearly, and I have worked with that myself a lot, sort of focusing on very basic needs and sort of trying to trigger people with things in a very low way, and that's sort of been adapted to journalism as well. And I think what we have to do now is to sort of look at people and talk to them and ask what can we do to sort of trigger human nature now that we've come so far in technology, past like the basic hate, anger, fear, crazy little cats doing funny stuff, and seeing what can we do now to get people and get the audience to care again and more.
Right. Thank you very much. So I think time run out. Thank you very much, Frederik, Tabea, John, Rebecca, for your time. Thank you, Manu, again, and thank you for watching and listening. So we slowed down a bit. As I assume. Thank you very much for your time. Thank you very much for listening. That was it. So easy as Utopia, I guess, right?
Yeah, we've done it.
We've done it. Yeah, we just made it. That's okay. So yeah, spread the word, or maybe don't, but slow down a bit. I think this is something good. And 4 more cheesecake then for everyone. Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right. I switch to the German language again. So, wir haben dann 15 Minuten Pause und dann geht es gleich weiter und es geht gleich weiter mit lokalen Themen. Ja, auch spannend.